Listen to the physics of a dying star. When a massive star finally exhausts its fuel, it stops pushing energy outward into the universe. It collapses inward upon itself. But it does not disappear. By collapsing inward, its density becomes infinite. It becomes a singularity. Its gravitational pull becomes so absolute, so undeniably powerful, that it begins to organize entire galaxies around it. In the unseen architecture of human connection, there is a moment exactly like this. A moment when the outward pull stops, when the frantic reaching across the void simply ceases. For a very long time, you believed that if you stopped holding the invisible bridge between you and the other, the entire structure would collapse. You believed your longing was the glue. You believed your continuous energetic projection was the only thing keeping the connection alive. But a strange, unnerving paradox occurs when the feminine energy finally retracts her invisible tentacles of rescue. When she stops projecting her life force into the future, anticipating the moment an avoidant soul will finally catch up. The connection does not die. Instead, it reorganizes. It becomes energetically stronger precisely when you emotionally detach. And at first, this feels terrifying because you are stepping into the unknown. You are stepping out of the familiar rhythm of pursuit. You are entering the Sophia Stage. You are no longer the waiting room. You are becoming the oracle. Let us examine the architecture of your previous state. To understand what you are becoming, we must first deconstruct the mechanism of what you are leaving behind. For years, you have existed inside a labyrinth of your own making. You believed you were building a bridge of light. In reality, you were constructing a cage of exhaustion. As the holder of space, your nervous system became wired for a very specific and punishing frequency. You learned to live in a state of chronic hypervigilance. You were operating under an old and deeply conditioned paradigm of romantic longing. It is a paradigm that cleverly disguises overfunctioning as unconditional love. You became a full-time translator for someone else's soul. Think about the sheer volume of mental energy you have expended over the months or years. You read the invisible subtext of their silence. You analyzed the complex geometry of their retreat. You spiritualized your own perpetual holding pattern. You convinced yourself that if you just held the vision long enough, they would eventually see the truth of the connection. Psychologically, this is the classic anxious avoidant dance. It is a relentless loop of intermittent reinforcement. Your brain became chemically addicted to the sudden dopamine spikes of their brief and warm returns. And then, inevitably, it plunged into cortisol-soaked withdrawal during their prolonged and cold absences. You mistook this violent chemical roller coaster for a profound spiritual bond. But this is not merely a psychological phenomenon confined to your mind. On a quantum level, it is a profound entanglement of energy. When you continuously lean forward into the energetic field of an unawakened counterpart, you displace your own center of gravity. You literally pull your spirit out of your physical body. Your aura stretches out across the distance to monitor their emotional state. It becomes thin. It becomes fragile, dispersed, and highly reactive. You attempt to blanket them in safety from afar. You hope that if you make the energetic environment perfect enough, they will finally feel safe enough to bloom. You pour your golden life force into their shadow, waiting for a reflection that never comes. There is a fundamental flaw in the physics of this dynamic. Quantum entanglement requires polarity to create movement. When you do the emotional labor for two people, you leave no empty space for the other to step into. You become the anxious heart, perpetually generating the forward movement. And in doing so, you inadvertently command the other to remain perfectly still. You have become the roaring engine for the entire connection. If you are doing all the moving, the universe dictates that they must remain stationary to maintain the equilibrium. Your pursuit guarantees their paralysis. This brings us to the exact mechanism of mirroring. In spiritual communities, we often misunderstand what mirroring truly means. We romanticize the concept. We like to think they are mirroring our deep capacity for love. They are not. They are mirroring your lack of internal boundary by showing you a relentless lack of external presence. They mirror your self-abandonment by abandoning you. They reflect the exact places where you have refused to choose yourself. Every time you checked your phone to see if the silence had finally broken, you abandoned your own center. Every time you sent healing energy into the ether to soothe their unacknowledged wounds, you depleted your own vital reserves. Every time you rationalized their inability to meet you by using high-level spiritual concepts, you betrayed your own grounded reality. You were bleeding life force. You were keeping the dynamic locked in an unending cycle of pursuit and evasion. You were keeping the sacred soul contract suspended in amber, unable to breathe and unable to grow. A dynamic cannot evolve if one person is holding all the weight. The universe will not allow a structure to stand if the foundation is built entirely on the self-sacrifice of the feminine. The exhaustion you feel in your bones right now is not a symptom of your personal failure. It is a symptom of mechanical failure in the dynamic itself. The engine has burned out. The psychic tether has frayed to its absolute breaking point. This deep and aching exhaustion is actually your own inherent wisdom knocking at the doors of your consciousness. It is telling you that the old way of loving is officially dead. The era of waiting must end so the era of your becoming can finally begin. There is a precise moment when the outward pull simply ceases. It is the singularity, the sudden collapse of your energetic reach. You might initially mistake this profound stillness for defeat. You might think you are finally giving up on the connection after years of tireless effort. But do not confuse this sacred retraction with giving up. Giving up is a collapse of the spirit born of deep despair. What you are experiencing is a masterful gathering of the spirit. It is the conscious consolidation of your fragmented life force back into your own physical vessel. You are crossing a vital threshold. You are stepping out of the waiting room of the anxious heart and entering the initiation of the Sophia Stage. In ancient Gnostic traditions, Sophia represents the archetype of divine and embodied wisdom. She is the fundamental feminine principle of the cosmos. Sophia does not chase. Sophia does not manipulate the external environment to manufacture a false sense of safety. She does not contort herself to fit into the microscopic spaces left by an unawakened counterpart. She simply knows. When you enter the Sophia Stage, a profound and cellular reorganization takes place within your own nervous system. The chronic hum of anxiety begins to quiet. You transition from a state of exhausting emotional dependence into a state of deep gnosis. Gnosis is not an intellectual concept you read in a book. It is direct, unmediated, somatic knowing. It is the quiet certainty that you are the architect of your own reality. In this sovereign space, you realize that your withdrawal of effort is not the tragic end of your story. It is the necessary beginning of a much higher octave of experience. You stop viewing the connection through the distorted lens of deficit and lack. You begin to observe it through the pristine lens of self-mastery. You undergo a fundamental shift in your energetic signature. You stop being the seeking field. You become the regulating field. You become the anchor point of reality rather than the one desperately searching for an anchor. Think of the vast and ancient ocean. The ocean does not reach out to pull the rivers into itself. It does not negotiate with the distant streams. It does not travel inland to convince the fresh water that it is time to flow. It simply rests in its own unimaginable depth. Its sheer mass and its absolute gravity draw all waters home. The ocean commands movement through its profound and unshakable stillness. When you finally pull your dispersed energy back into your own body, you create a massive energetic vacuum. Nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. and so does a quantum soul contract. By retracting your invisible tentacles of rescue, you initiate profound attachment repair within yourself. You stop abandoning your own inner child to parent their unhealed wounds. You bring your fierce awareness back to the only territory you actually have the right to govern. You return to your own somatic experience. And in this newly cultivated space of nervous system safety, your consciousness expands and solidifies. You become the oracle. An oracle does not sit by the temple gates, anxiously waiting for a visitor to arrive. She does not check the horizon for a cloud of dust. An oracle sits in the exact center of her own being. She is fully occupied by her own divinity. She is sovereign. She is entirely whole. She requires absolutely nothing from the outside world to validate her existence or her power. When you fully embody this frequency, the quantum field between you and the avoidant soul shifts instantaneously. The invisible psychic thread between you has been slack for years because you were always walking toward them. The moment you sit down on your own throne, that thread suddenly goes taut. They feel the immediate and undeniable absence of your pursuit. The heavy psychic pressure they have been subconsciously running from suddenly lifts off their chest. And paradoxically, beautifully, your absolute detachment is what finally allows them to feel you. You are no longer buffering their reality. You're no longer managing their karma. By removing your energetic safety net, you give them the greatest spiritual gift possible. You leave them entirely alone with their own reflection. How do we anchor this profound Sophia frequency into the dense reality of the physical body? We must move from understanding this transition intellectually to living it on a cellular level. The anxious heart is incredibly clever and deeply conditioned. It will try to trick you. It will attempt to use this new concept of detachment as a covert strategy. It will try to use your silence to manipulate the unawakened counterpart into returning. But you must remember a fundamental truth of this energetic state. The oracle does not strategize. The oracle simply embodies. To consolidate this powerful stage and prevent a relapse into the old dynamic, you must make 3 specific internal shifts today. The first shift requires you to reclaim your empty throne. You must forcefully and consciously stop holding energetic space for their unrealized potential. Your energy has been leaking into their timeline for far too long. Your mind has been deeply conditioned to wander into their emotional landscape. You are used to analyzing why they did what they did. You are accustomed to wondering if they are thinking of you. You constantly try to decode the trajectory of their spiritual journey. When you catch your awareness slipping into this familiar groove, you must cleanly sever the thought. Imagine a heavy and golden sword cutting the invisible cord of that specific projection. Bring your awareness immediately down into your physical body. Drop your attention into your pelvis. Anchor it deeply into your root. Say to yourself out loud that you are returning to your own center. You must resign from your unpaid internship as the manager of their awakening. You are officially handing them back the responsibility for their own soul. You are granting them the profound dignity of their own process. You must allow them to walk their own path, even if that process takes an entire lifetime to unfold. The second shift is the establishment of the oracle's standard. The Sophia stage absolutely requires new relational baselines. You must accept a brutal but deeply liberating truth. You cannot heal another human being through energetic osmosis. When you create a massive energetic vacuum, they almost always reappear. The sudden absence of your pursuit acts as a quantum magnet. But when they inevitably knock on the door, you do not respond from the frantic energy of the anxious heart. You do not rush to the threshold to let them in. You do not reward their breadcrumbs with a massive feast of your attention. You simply observe. You let their words and their actions land in the vast ocean of your presence. You require them to meet you in the grounded frequency of emotional adults. You do not lower your vibration to accommodate their temporary comfort. If their energy is erratic, inconsistent, or unsafe for your nervous system, you gracefully remain in your own lane. You do not explain your boundaries to them. You do not write them a long paragraph detailing your recent spiritual growth. You simply embody the boundary in absolute silence. The oracle does not justify the heavy doors of her temple. They are simply locked to those who refuse to wipe their feet. The third and final shift is the alchemy of your own grief. There will be inevitable moments when the phantom limb of the old dynamic aches deeply. The neural pathways of your addiction to their potential will take time to rewire. The sudden desire to fix, to reach out, or to obsess will flare up in your chest like a sudden fever. Do not judge this biological reaction. This is simply your nervous system metabolizing very old survival patterns. But instead of projecting that intense grief outward onto the avoidant soul, you must pull it inward. Breathe directly into the absolute center of the ache. Ask the sensation what specific wisdom is trying to be born in this exact moment. Feel the raw physical sensation of the longing without attaching their face to it. You must separate the pure energy of love from the human avatar of that specific person. This is the ultimate secret of spiritual alchemy. This is how you turn raw emotional pain into pure and usable life force. This is how you spin the heavy straw of your exhaustion into the brilliant gold of your own sovereignty. Stepping into the Sophia Stage is the most terrifying and magnificent initiation of your life. You are trading the illusion of control for the reality of power. You are stepping out of the chaotic currents of pursuit and dropping your anchor into the bedrock of your own soul. You will leave this transition with language for what you are becoming, rather than what you are losing. You are not losing a connection. You are losing a parasite of anxiety. You are not losing a future. You are gaining the present moment. You are defined by the immense, quiet magnitude of your own sovereignty. The waiting is over, not because they have finally arrived, but because you have. As you rest in this new center of gravity, I leave you with one final thought, a question to carry with you into the silence of your own temple. If you were already the oracle of this connection, what decision would you make this week that you have been avoiding?